Hey folks, welcome back to Only Best Fancy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I'm taking a look at a book that takes a look at what would happen if a fairy kidnapping were to happen in this day and age. And that book is Some Kind of Fairy Tale by Joyce. This is the second book I've read from him, and the second one that's just been a pretty fun way to pass a few hours. Some Kind of Fairy Tale is a story of the Martin family. And we open to it being Christmas Day, and Peter Martin is looking forward to spending the day with his big brood of children, doing their usual Christmas Day stuff. When his parents call him to let him know that his sister Tara is there, which is pretty normal Christmas stuff. Except Tara's been missing for 20 years, and she just reappeared. So as you can imagine, it throws everything into pretty into a fair bit of chaos, especially given the circumstances and the fallout of Tara's disappearance 20 years ago. So what unfolds from there is a pretty interesting story. For the most part, we follow just a handful of characters. We follow Peter, we follow Tara, we follow their friend, who was also Tara's boyfriend and the primary suspect in her disappearance. We follow one of Peter's children, who has a seemingly completely unrelated storyline. It's a pretty interesting book. It doesn't go. I suspect it isn't going to go as in depth as a lot of people hope for, given the premise. But it's a short, fun read. Yeah, that's the story is essentially just like about the return of Tara and the fallout. Like, obviously, no one believes her story about having this fairy encounter, even though she looks as if she hasn't aged more than a few days, and it goes through the entire thing you would expect. She goes through medical checkups, therapy, you name it, the whole nine yards. There's a lot of complex emotions to sort through, from her parents who are just relieved for her to finally be home, from Peter, who is angry at her return with seemingly no proper explanation. There's a lot of baggage to unpack with the friend who has been essentially estranged for 20 years, given he was the primary suspect in her disappearance. And as the story unfolds, we kind of unpack that entire situation with Peter, Tara, and the friend. Just the events that led up to the disappearance, why he was the primary suspect, just the betrayal and this uneasy, the uneasy reignition of bonds and these kind of things. It's a pretty complex scenario to read with the three of them, and of course there's so many things that happen with Tara's reintegration into society. 20 years have passed after all. Like, no one that she knows is the person that she left for a few mornings. She's still behaving pretty much the way she was before, but at the same time she's very much changed by her time in the fairylands. These kind of things. In addition to that, Tara didn't come back as mundane as she was when she left. Like, she came back with a few tricks up her sleeve, and as the story progresses, we get some events that kind of make it seem like she's capable of a little more of a few magical things that she should be capable of. One of the cool things about how the way the story is told is that it's structured. It's told in a way that we're not 100% convinced that what Tara went through is what she says she went through. Like, we're told pretty definitively that that yes, this is what happened to her. These are the events and whatever. Like, there's quite a bit of belief behind those POVs and that story, but at the same time, a lot is thrown in to kind of cast doubt on it. We have the assessments of the therapist. We have snippets sown throughout the book of that just kind of touch on different cases and the different ways that the whole fairy kidnapping trope has been used and manipulated over the centuries by people who are doing everything from escaping commitments to committing adultery. That entire thing. So there's quite a bit of, like, even though it seems like it's clear cut, there's quite a bit of murkiness introduced as a result of all of that. But ultimately, it's a story of the relationships between these people. And like I mentioned, it doesn't go as in depth as I'm sure quite a lot of people would have wanted. The whole examination of what it would be like if she returned, it's also dealt with on a fairly shallow level. Like the family, mainly driven by the parents, they just want to reintegrate her back into their family unit. They don't want to stir up any troubles. They don't want to scare her off, that kind of thing. So because of that, like, it doesn't become as big a commotion as a public commotion, I should say, as you'd expect. Like, the police don't get involved in that kind of thing. So there's that, and then that's the primary story. We also have a secondary story going through it with one of Peter's son, who has he has this weird story going with involving a neighbor, and it seems to have no bearing on what's happened before until the very end, when everything is kind of tied together in a way that seems both tangential, and it also foreshadows the way that this book, the situation that's going to lead straight into the ending of this book. So there's that. That's kind of it. Like, it's a short read. It's punchy. Like, Graham Joyce is a good writer. He's not the world's best. He's not the world's worst. And like, given this is a book that very much falls into like the whole magical realism, literary fiction side of fantasy, it doesn't, like, for me, I there's a lot more depth that could have been explored here that he simply doesn't, which I think is going to detract from the enjoyment for quite a few people. But for me, it was okay for a light read. And yeah, we get a pretty interesting culmination towards the end, because as much as Tara came back, she didn't necessarily come back with no strings attached. And there are some teases to some stranger things that do happen throughout the book. So it was okay. It was okay from start to finish. A pretty fun book. Like I said, this is the second Graham Joyce book I've read, and neither of them has been like blow my mind stellar, but neither of them has been bad either. They've been good ways to pass the time. And yeah, I think that kind of sums up my thoughts on Some Kind of Fairy Tale. Like, it's a pretty good book. Anyway, yeah, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I guess I'll see you next time.